Hello guys, in this video, this is a 2022 Senate update video. Just because the election is coming closer, we'll be doing multiple Senate videos a month just to keep in touch with how the Senate races are going. So let's go on and just fill out these states. Washington, it's going to be won by the Democrats by over 10%. I don't think the Republican here has a real shot. She isn't a moderate candidate by any means, so she isn't going to make this state as a likely state. Let's fill in the safe red states as well. I think Murkowski's going to win in Alaska, so probably by a lean or even likely margin. Grassley's easily going to win in Iowa, so there's really no change there. Let's do the safe blue states. Okay, so let's get right into it. First things first. Utah, I'm going to think it's going to be likely Republican. I really do think the Republican incumbent here is struggling. I mean, just a day ago, he was begging Mitt Romney for an endorsement against Evan McMullin because he really is seeing McMullin making this a likely race, which is really striking for Utah. Utah might actually be into the likely category, and I think it is right now. McMullin's running a decent campaign here. Even though he's a conservative, but he's an independent, he's getting all the Democratic voters and some independent voters even. So he has a real shot in Utah. Don't look him over. But if it was like a blue-leaning environment, this state could even be lean Republican, but I'm going to be putting as likely for now. Next state. Wisconsin. At this point, it's a likely race. With a poll coming out, well, I'm recording this a day before, with a poll coming out recently that shows Ron Johnson in the Marquette Law poll ahead by 6%, and they're still undecided, so that'll probably lean Republican. I think Ron Johnson will probably win by 6 or 7% at this point in Wisconsin. Just because Mandela Barnes is running a pretty bad campaign, he's getting outraised and like, pretty much the ads against him are extremely negative. He's just getting, there's a lot of ads quantity-wise. He's just getting, I would say, just outspent in this Senate race. The Republicans have way more ads on the air in Wisconsin, and that's genuinely hurting Mandela Barnes' chances at winning here. It's fading away very quick. I think he only has like a 10 or 15% chance at winning the state now. In New Hampshire, Don Bolduc has no chance. I really don't see him as a strong nominee, and I think Hassan's easily going to win here. I mean, she defeated an incumbent Republican senator 6 years ago, so she's a pretty tough candidate to beat. In Colorado, I also don't think this race is going to be all that competitive, but I think the Democrat will win here by about 9% against Joe Adea. Even though he's a moderate Republican, his comments about how he doesn't like Trump or disagrees with Trump on things, that's definitely going to hurt him with the Republican base in Colorado. In Ohio, I think this state's going to be won by J.D. Vance by about 3 or 4%. It will be in the lean column, and honestly, Wisconsin's probably going to be won by more just because they have an incumbent senator there. Incumbency advantage is a very real thing, and J.D. Vance is a pretty bad candidate by a lot of means, and Tim Ryan's just a really strong candidate for Democrats. But even though he's an excellent candidate, it's a neutral wave year, and Ohio is a leaning red state, so it's going to be won by Republicans. North Carolina, I mean, most polls show it as a very even race, but there's so many undecideds, which typically lean Republican in most polls. They usually go like 70-30. So that's why I think the Republican Ted Budd here will have an advantage. Even though he's tying it amongst the Democrat in these polls, I think he'll pull out a victory here. In Florida, Rubio has a lot of sizable support among minority voters, so I don't think anything has changed in this Senate race either. In Georgia, after the polls we've seen, I think we're going to be heading to a runoff election here, but that's good for Raphael Warnock because it's just a 1v1 between him and Walker. He's probably going to beat Walker by like 2 to 3%, I would say, maybe even by 4. There's still an outside chance that Warnock could just avoid a runoff entirely by getting over 50, but the Libertarian candidate will definitely hurt his chances at doing so. But I think the state's heading to a runoff, and Warnock's going to win that runoff. In the state of Arizona, I mean, there still hasn't been a poll that shows Blake Masters ahead here. So I think Mark Kelly's going to be able to pull off a victory here against Blake Masters, just because even though he didn't do the best in the debate, he still held his ground in the debate, and he didn't really lose it by much. And plus, Mark Kelly's always been leading these polls most of the time anyway, so I still think he's going to pull off a victory here. In the state of Nevada, this is one of the times I'm actually going to be changing something from the same month. I think the Republican here, Adam Laxalt, is probably going to win by an under 1% margin, like 0.8, 0.5%. He's constantly leading against the Democrat in these polls. However, polls in Nevada typically underestimate the Democrats. So that's one good thing for Catherine Cortez Masto. She still has a chance here, but if the election were held right now, the Republican would probably win because he's just doing well among independent voters in the state and among Latinos a bit in the polls we've seen. In the state of Pennsylvania, with a debate on the horizon for Fetterman here, and with Oz slowly consolidating votes among undecided voters, I'm going to be putting the state as a tilt Democratic state, mainly because concerns about Fetterman's health are becoming more numerous among voters, and the news is focusing on that more. I do think this race is probably going to be put into the tilt column, especially Fetterman on average is leading by about 4% in the polls. However, if you include like 2020 polls where the polls were off by like 3%, then this race would be put into the 1% column, which is just about tilt in my mind. So I think Fetterman will still pull off a victory by about 1%, just about tilt in this rating. So the Democrats still have a path to 51 Senate seats. They need to improve their margins in Nevada and Pennsylvania. Wisconsin seems to be out of reach, and they really should focus on North Carolina. Put more funds into this race, and maybe some funds into Ohio. It could be winnable, but I'd focus more on North Carolina. It's more doable than Ohio. Wisconsin's basically already lost. So that's my new 2022 Senate prediction in the middle of October. Let me know what you think this election prediction in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.